If we flash back like 10 years and I ask myself, what would Gina Marie at that point, because I wasn't Dr. Gina Marie 10 years ago, what would she want to know? And what's something that I could share that would be helpful for somebody that's maybe following in my footsteps? Somebody like my sister who is literally starting this journey in medical school this year. So what would I want to know? I think what I would want to know is about my journey. Like, how did I get here? And what were the steps that I took? I feel like that would have been helpful to have kind of a path to follow. So straight out of high school, I decided not to go away to college. So I stayed home. I went to New York Institute of Technology, which is a technical school. It's on Long Island. It was about 30 minutes from my home. When I started college, I thought I was going to be an interior designer. That was my major. I met some really cool people during that time. It was an architecture interior design program. It was combined, but my heart just wasn't in it. And I just knew that this wasn't for me and I was looking for another path. And I met the right people at the right time that kind of put me on this path of pre-med and medicine and biology. And I really believe that sometimes in life you meet people in life that nudge you in the direction that you need to go in. And maybe they stay in your life long term or maybe it's just like a very short time, but they nudge you in the direction you need to go, kind of pushing you, fate, destiny, whatever you want to call it. So ultimately decided to become pre-med. I enjoyed those classes very much. I made a lot of friends. And if things had gone according to my plan, which we laugh about this, I wanted to go to the medical school that was on the campus. That's NICOM, also an osteopathic medical school. I didn't have any guidance in how to apply, what I should be doing. I applied to 6 medical schools. I sent my application in, and this makes me cringe, like the day it was due, like the last day. Meanwhile, I know you're supposed to send it like as soon as the thing opens. I learned these lessons. Once I got to applying to residencies, I had learned how to find the resources that I needed. Applied to 6 schools. I didn't get into NICOM. I think I got waitlisted. I got an interview to a school in Florida called LECOM, Lake Erie College of Osteopathic Medicine. It's in Lakewood Ranch. I went to the interview. I literally went with my grandparents because they were down in Florida, snowbirds. Took me there. We stayed at a hotel, did the interview. And then this is really good advice to anyone who's interviewing kind of in this process. It was like a month and a half after the interview, I hadn't heard back. So I was upset. I sent, an email or whatever it was, following up right after, right? You send your thank you email, hadn't heard back. And somebody told me, why don't you call? Like, why don't you call the registrar or the admissions office? Just tell them you're interested. You just want to check on the status of your application. So I reached out to the admissions office. Just want to check the status of my application. She's like, okay, let me look here. She's like, oh, I see everything here. She's like, can you do me a favor? She's like, send me a letter of intent. Can you put something together and email it to me at this email address? I'm like, okay, no problem. I get off the phone. I'm literally at work. I was working at an ophthalmologist's office. I'm at work. I put the letter together. I sent it over. Within like 5 minutes, she calls me. She's like, hello, Miss Papia. Thank you so much. We got your letter. She's like, I just want to be the first one to tell you congratulations. We are welcoming you into the class of 2019 for the medical class. I was like in shock. So it just goes to show you that sometimes they have so many candidates. You need to do something that kind of sets you apart and know that you're still interested. So that was crazy. And then things happened very fast from there. I had to find an apartment. I found a roommate, all the different things. I went to school and did those 2 years, my preclinical years in Florida. It was a really great experience. It was the first time I was away from home. I really loved living in Florida. I made a lot of good friends, got into like working out and taking care of myself. I was able to get into a routine. And I was also, let me tell you, I was also very anxious at this point, right? Like I was super anxious. Medical school is really tough and it's emotionally tough as much as it is, the work that you need to do tough. And at that time, my grandparents were snowbirds in about 2 hours south of where I was, and I would go there every single weekend. So in addition to being in medical school, I got to spend a lot of time with my grandparents, all my grandparents' friends. I would go on their like senior outings at the Italian club and all this different stuff. But it was when I look back, it was stressful at that time and I hated it. But when I look back, it was really good times that I got to spend with my grandparents and do those things. So that was my preclinical years. So you have 2 years preclinical, 2 years, then you go and do rotations. It was a cluster, during trying to find rotations because the school didn't have like a hospital attached to it in Florida. And they had a few different ones that they were affiliated with. And at that time, I was like, I want to go home. Like, I want to go back to New York. I want to be, with my siblings and be with my family. And so I'm like, they gave us the option to set up our own rotations, which thinking about this and like you start talking to other people is absolutely crazy because you have no control over anything. But I somehow managed to set up all my own rotations. Some were through LECOM connections because some had to be in a hospital, like surgical rotations and different things like that. But how I did it, and it's actually some was through like family connections, like, oh, this is our family doctor, this is how we set this up. And then I remember this is like a good like sales thing. I remember for my psych rotation, I had to find someone. So somebody told me just make a list of like 100 providers in the area and cold call. So I'm over there doing cold call. Hi, would you, and you kind of like perfect it. I'm like, oh, hey, I'm thinking about, would you ever be open to having a medical student? And then you kind of go down the path. And I ultimately found somebody that, took me as for an elective or for psych or whatever it was. And everything worked out the way it needed to. Again, you meet a lot of cool people. I did some in Florida. I did some in New York. I was kind of in different hospital systems, and it ended up being a very cool experience. When I finally got my, shit together for applying to residencies, I bought this like book that was like this big, and it was like how to apply to residencies. And I read that thing cover to cover, and my resume was perfect. And I did all the things, I prepared for all the stuff. I knew how many I was going to apply to. And so that process of application was a lot more organized than my application to medical school. I ultimately decided to do internal medicine because I knew I didn't want to be in a hospital. I knew I wanted to take care of adults, although honestly, when I look back, I probably would have thrived in family medicine because I do love being around kids and just seeing the different ages. But I ultimately picked internal medicine. At that time, why I decided that was because I wanted to leave my options open. And I was thinking if I was going to do like a fellowship, like cardiology, endocrinology, nephrology, hematology, I felt that I had a better chance of matching to those things if I did internal medicine. So that's kind of how I based my decision. Ultimately applied, went to all these different hospitals. I picked I don't know how many miles out from my parents' house because I wanted to be close to home, and I applied to all these different hospitals. I had no idea that Connecticut is literally 30 minutes. Like Connecticut, the border of Connecticut is 30 minutes from my parents' house in Whitestone. Not a clue. Went to Greenwich Hospital the first time. That was the first time I went to Connecticut for my residency interview. Absolutely fell in love with this hospital. The hospital is beautiful. The area is beautiful, but the people were so kind. And I just remember walking through the hallways when they were giving us the tour, and people would be like, good morning, good morning. And I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm in heaven. This place is amazing. And I just fell in love with the hospital. Ultimately decided to put that first. Everything lined up. I matched there to my top choice. I did my 3 years of residency there. A little bit of a wrench thrown in things was when COVID happened, when I was an intern. So March of 2020. I'm literally starting to wrap up my first year being a doctor, and we thrown a global pandemic. So that really put a lot of, it just changed the way the residency was. It changed the stress levels. It changed a lot of different things. I love my time in residency. I love my people. I freaking love my co-residents. I love the time I had there, the people that I met. I met people there that I'll probably keep in touch with. Obviously, you're in the trenches like for the rest of my life. So I'm grateful for that. And then it was like midway through my residency. And I should say before, when I was like in college, I was debating of whether I was going to go to medical school or acupuncture school, because I had a great experience with an acupuncturist that I still keep in touch with. He's like distantly related through my mom's family. He figures out things. I don't even know. He's like a wizard. Okay. Still to this day, we send people to him. He's fantastic. My family sees him. But I was really debating going to acupuncture school. And he said to me, he goes, if I had done anything differently, he's like, I would have went to DO school, and you can do the acupuncture, but you have more opportunity as a physician doing acupuncture. And I've had like a few moments in my life where I can think about words or advice that was given to me that really, I took it in my heart. And I felt like I took it very seriously, and it kind of guided me. So, being a doctor, as being, whatever you are in life, just remember that sometimes the things that you say when you giving advice and stuff, you really have the power to shape someone's future. So that was really important. So ultimately, right, go to medical school, do all this stuff. Midway through my residency, through a friend of mine who's in another residency program, learned that an integrative medicine residency program is a thing, and they have a few of them throughout the country. At that point, the only one I had ever heard of was the one through Andrew Weil, and that's the one. It's not like you go to a hospital system and you're there like a traditional fellowship. You do it afterwards, you pay out of pocket, you go there for a week, but mostly it's like your own didactics, like separated. And I found about these programs. There were a few different ones in the country. There was like one in Philly, one in Chicago, one or two in California, and I applied to all of them because again, there were only a handful, and it was separate than the match, right? So it wasn't in the match for fellowship. It was a separate, and I did interviews and ultimately I really connected with the doctors and the people I interviewed with at Northwestern, and that's here in Chicago. And ultimately, I did my fellowship. I was there for a year. It was supposed to be a 2-year fellowship. And after just being there a year, I'm not sure what it was. I felt like I needed to leave. I didn't know if it was I missed my family. I just wasn't very happy there. And I ultimately decided to leave after a year. But that year I had gotten all the didactics I needed and the experience that I needed to apply to take the boards. So I didn't do the 2-year fellowship because the second year was supposed to be, I probably would have ended up doing an acupuncture course, and it would have ended up being building my practice there. But I didn't see myself staying there or in Chicago, which is very ironic because I'm back here now, but we'll get to that. So I ended up leaving after a year. It was a really tough decision. That's the first time in my life where I actually made it, because school and residency and all, like, you don't really have a choice. And that was the first time I made a decision, and that was huge for me. And obviously came with a lot of like trepidation. Like, am I making the right decision? Like, I'm not following through. I'm not finishing this. But I didn't feel so bad about it because I knew that I was able to get my board certification, which was important to me. So ultimately I ended up leaving, moved back to New York to be with my family. I have an incredible mentor who's an endocrinologist. He has his own private practice. I was introduced to him when I was in college. I shadowed him, and he's just like one of the most amazing people, incredible doctors that I know. I was like, can I work in I did this before I quit my fellowship, people. Okay. I called him. I said, would you be open to having me work in your office? Like, I'm not really sure what I want to do. And he was like, absolutely. He's like, absolutely. He's like, do what you have to do. Come home. We'll talk about it. And we ultimately figured it out. I spent a year there working in his office. What an incredible experience. And I'm so incredibly grateful for it because it kind of put me on this trajectory where I ended up seeing a ton of patients for weight loss, because as an endocrinologist, a lot of people come because they're like, I think my hormones are driving my weight challenges. And a lot of times they are, but it takes a lot of time and patience. And if you're seeing so many patients in a day, it's hard to have those conversations. But I had the luxury of time. So I would talk to the patients for a really long time. We were using a lot of these GLP-1 medications, and I just saw the impact these things were having. And like when people would come back in these small wins, and you're talking about people who've been struggling with their weight their whole freaking life, and they come back and they're like 5-10 pounds down, and after like a month, and they're just like, wow. Like, this just gives me like a new lease on life. And that really like sparked this excitement in me. And ultimately from there, did a few other things. I was doing some part-time stuff and decided to start my practice because I'm like, I really feel like I can help people with this. And that's how I got here. So I think I'm going to continue this little series on what Gina Marie 10 years ago would have wanted to know. If you like this video, if you find this helpful in any way, please like and subscribe. I'm going to keep posting videos. Thank you. Thank you for watching.